Hello. Um, Hi. So, in this week's episode of Unquiet Baltic, I would like to talk about agriculture and husbandry and how possible climate change may affect our conditions for growing food. And so, so in this world of global warming and where everywhere we hear about breaking heat records and so on, also currently at the end of September, 21st of September, in Latvia, it's still quite warm, as you can see. Uh, Although in the next days it will get a lot colder. But anyway, uh, in this global warming dominated news environment, let's say so, we also have to remember about other possibilities, and namely that the North Atlantic Ocean could bring in adjustments to the global warming regionally in North Europe and Northwestern Europe. Specifically, there is a serious scientific debate and research that if the North Atlantic, this AMOC stream, which carries hot water and warmth from the tropics to Northern Europe, if it slows down significantly or collapses, as it has happened in the past, and namely at the beginning of the last snap of the last ice age, the Younger Dryas event, then the weather could change significantly and it could drop by around, possibly by around 15 degrees. So if you have a winter which is -5 degrees, it's -20. But if it's in Latvia, as you sometimes get -20, then it can turn to -35. There are different prognoses when this AMOC stream could slow down significantly or collapse. Older studies say that, not old, but from 10-15 years ago, say it could possibly link around to the next century, and around 200, 2100 and so on, it could collapse. More recent studies, as I explained in a previous episode, say that the dam could collapse even mid-century, this mid-century, or slow down significantly. So, and if that happens, but one thing that the scientific studies are clear about is that they are not sure on the timing when it will happen, but if the global warming trend continues, most likely it will happen, and as it has happened in the past in similar circumstances, not due to human-induced climate change, but also when the weather was becoming warmer. So when that happens, not sure when, but when that happens, North Europe and Northwestern Europe will have a change in the weather patterns. The winters will get a lot colder, the growing seasons will be shorter, and the rainfall will be more erratic, meaning that could be very wet, like autumn seasons, and quite dry summers, as we have already started to experience. And indeed, the AMOC stream right now is slower than it has been in 1,600 years. So, but what happens? So we get harsh cold winters, even more cold harsh winters than now. We will have erratic weather patterns, lots of wetness, perhaps in autumn, perhaps it will be droughts in summer. Also, it could mean frequent cold snaps in the spring. So all this brings together that we have to rethink what we grow and what food we manufacture, let's say so, in Baltic states. So it is, and here I propose that we could look on ancient times, not like return to prehistoric and return to hunter-gathering perhaps, but see what wheats and cereals and so on, what worked. And what worked was rye, as one of the ancient grains still like in being grown today, and rye bread and so on. So rye is an old friend of the north, and has been grown for centuries in a sandier and harsher climate. It's more weather resistant, cold resistant. You can leave it, the so-called winter rye. It germinates during the winter season and is harvested next year. So that is one thing that we could return more to growing rye, and bread is delicious. There are some other crops we could use are barley and oats, which also can deal with shorter growing seasons, so they don't need to, like wheat, this long season, they can be grown in shorter seasons, so barley and oats, and oat porridges and so on, so we can have food. So what else is that I think root cellars will return in style, as roots are not that affected by what happens upstairs, and even the leafy part of the roots can wither and die, but the roots below remain. And among these, I would say that carrots and parsnips and beets and turnips and celeriac are some of those which we can grow, and we will need to keep them somewhere safe. So root cellars. And if we talk about leafy vegetables, then kale and cabbages. So all these foods you could see perhaps in authentic Viking movies and so on. Um, yeah, we could eat a lot more cabbages and a lot less avocados for those who eat avocados. And also, if talking about wheat, the current wheat probably won't be sustainable, as we already have seen this growing season. And we have to look at the ancient wheats, which were grown in prehistoric times, so, and medieval times and so on. So it could be emmer and spelt. These ancient wheats are also more weather resistant. They do not give such plentiful bounty. They are not as do not give so many crops as modern wheat, but emmer and spelt are those where you want to diversify. If there is no wheat, I will have emmer and spelt. And so we have to look at the crops which were grown in ancient times, also during this medieval short ice age period when the weather was colder. We can look at historic records and see what was grown then. And we also have to protect the bees, the pollinators, and because they affect the flowering plants, the flowering vegetables, and they have to be protected during these harsh winters so they don't die out. So this how did you call it, this bee not growing but beekeeping, beekeeping will be essential to have summer vegetables and summer flowering plants and so on. And if we look at so if we look at the animals, also the current, like cows and bulls, and even pigs, they won't be sustainable because they eat a lot, They cost a lot of energy, a lot of water, a lot of food during the winter time as well. So we will have to look at smaller animals, more sturdy animals, animals that do not have to have lots of grasslands, and such as sheep, like the Icelandic sheep, which have been selected for more than 1,000 years to live in Icelandic weather, and also goats. Because they do not graze everything, they more like browse and go, and they can uh, produce milk and meat. I'm vegetarian speaking that, but still, in these harsher periods. We will also have to look at, for example, with talking about smaller animals, also ducks of the breed which are more used to cold climate ducks, and chicken also will be essential food source. So I think the big animals, if this happens, they will go away because they're not sustainable. And we also have to look at methods to extend the growing seasons, like have these long tunnels and heat resistant frost cloth, not heat but cold resistant frost cloth, and much more time and energy will have to be devoted to, oh, it's sun, let's take the cloth off, or next night it will be frost again, then we have to cover everything, and so on. So a lot more attention and time will be have to devoted to growing food, and look at these, not greenhouses because you don't have so much material, but like these uh, covers and so on. And we will also have to think about capturing water because wet autumns and wet springs and plentiful snow in winters doesn't translate that there will not be droughts, because several of these prognoses or simulations of what will happen if the AMOC slows down significantly and collapses is about that summers could be a lot more drier. So we will also, so rye is a good candidate for this because it has it grows better in the dry conditions, and it takes from water from deeper, and also root vegetables, those can take from the deep soil, and perhaps we will have to expand more these pond systems and other ways, and saturate soil and so on. So different methods to keep the water for drier summers. So so it's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do and still grow food in such conditions, but it is understandable that it won't be the food we are most likely eating now, and we will have to be more self-reliant, and we will have to keep food for the winter, so store food for the winter in our basements and so on. So a bit of like redo of prior ages, but with modern scientific methods, if we don't abandon science, and we can survive, but it will most likely be survival, not like leisure we are enjoying now. So, but yeah, not all doom and gloom. We can survive, but it will take some adjusting if this scenario happens. So, have a nice day, and see you next time. Bye.